Alas, it should be noted that the woke media loves the tripe that is the living dead, states the Washington Post, the definitive account of the zombie apocalypse. The New York Times chimes in with panoramic and sweeping, a smorgasbord of the undead, a book that will give even the most ardent zombie lovers their fix. Not this ardent zombie lover, I'll tell you. But of course, the Washington Compost and the New York Slimes would state such claptrap because Daniel Krauss is preaching to the converted when it comes to mainstream media zombies. Now, I know what some of you might be saying right now. Hey, big deal. The Living Dead is merely some goofy work of fiction that means squat in the final analysis. But I respectfully disagree, for this is bigger than just some random dumb zombie book. That's because Daniel Krauss and his prose is indicative of what has happened to society at large in recent years when it comes to wokeness and progressiveness and critical race theory and even Marxism infiltrating all aspects of our lives, from education and politics to entertainment. So it is we now live in a society where some lives matter and some lives do not. So it is we exist in a bizarre biosphere in which racism is unacceptable, except when it comes to vilifying certain races. And hey, seeking escape in fiction is no longer an option. The ideology of the far left, like a zombie apocalypse itself, has taken root. But the question arises, is this movement unstoppable? Well, no, I think it isn't. Hope abounds, and a measure of hope against loony left progressiveness came last week thanks to various U.S. elections stateside. First and foremost, Republican candidate Glenn Youngkin stunned the Democrat incumbent Governor Terry McAuliffe in Virginia. Youngkin campaigned on the detriments of critical race theory. Meanwhile, former Governor McAuliffe stated that parents should have no say when it comes to their child's education. Yes, he actually said that. Well, guess what? Mama Bear woke up and she wasn't pleased that the 3 R's were being jettisoned in Virginia in favor of an approved form of racism and the gross ideology that promotes the radical transgender movement. There were Republican victories and near victories all across America last Tuesday, even in uber woke Minneapolis, where the defund the police agenda seemed like a slam dunk proposition after the death of George Floyd. But voters rejected a ballot question in which a new public safety department, whatever the hell that means, would replace the Minneapolis police force. Yeah, so maybe defunding the police looks good on paper, but the gut check reality is that when an armed thug is trying to break into your home in the wee hours of the morning, who are you going to call? The Ghostbusters? You know, it was so pleasing to witness the events of last Tuesday, rattling Democrats and, of course, their allies in the mainstream media. And when analyzing what went wrong, well, Democratic strategist James Carville nailed it, I think, when he stated, quote, "What went wrong is stupid wokeness," end quote. Indeed, in the months ahead, will the Democrats regroup in time for next year's midterm elections? Will they move away from radical leftism? Or will they double down on American Marxism, to use that superb descriptor from the brilliant author and broadcaster Mark Levin? Oh, and speaking of zombies closer to home, will conservative leader Aaron O'Toole ever, wake up? Here's a guy who has just conducted 3 press events since the September election, less than half of the press events Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has held. Now, you'd think the man who wants to be PM would be doing everything possible to get his message out. Apparently not. But why? Maybe it's because his unofficial slogan is, "Don't be too conservative," or is his catchphrase, me too, when it comes to liberal policies ranging from carbon taxes to gun bans. Personally, I don't think Aaron O'Toole or his wimpy war room learned anything from last Tuesday, or for that matter, the last Canadian federal election back on September 20th. Indeed, don't forget, O'Toole actually claimed victory for the Conservatives on election night, given that the Trudeau Liberals were held to a minority. You know, Aaron O'Toole strikes me as the kind of guy who does fist pumps when a game of chess ends in a stalemate. And so it is that when the next election is called, likely within the next 2 years, Mr. O'Toole will continue to plod along, zombie-like, moving his party yet further and further to the left in order to woo the Laurentian elites while ignoring his Western Canada base. Well, we all know how that monster chiller horror theater movie ends. Talk about the living dead indeed.
That's an excerpt from my daily show, The Ezra Levant Show. Every day I do a monologue on the news of the day, then I interview an interesting guest, and then I read my hate mail. You gotta subscribe. Go to rebelnews.com.